say that first and foremost, I commend the panel for the job done. It's not an easy task, it's very enormous. But considering the fact that it's a hydra-headed job, one was on the NSAS generally, and then the other one was on the event that played out in Lekki to it. I believe that, my opinion though, that two different panels ought to have handled these two issues. One being a very sensitive one, and then the other one being the general one. Both are sensitive. So, but the panel did, justice. But it was almost as if on the Lekki toll gate, the panel was in a hurry to give with one hand and take with another. In one breath, they agreed that the evidence that was incontroverted of the pathologist admitted that one person, of the three persons examined from Lekki, one person was from bullet wound. That was the evidence from the panel. And then in another breath, they said, there was incontrovertible evidence that people died, but it was not established how these people died, whether it was as a result of bullet wound from the army, that was not established. So that's created a contradiction in the report of the panel. And like we say in law, once there is a contradiction or a doubt raised in the mind of the court, it's resolved in favor of the accused persons. And so that doubt alone, I think it was that doubt that led Lagos State government to say, you know what, this having created this doubt, we are not too comfortable with the conclusion reached because it is not in consonance with the issues that you yourself raised. So, but like we all know, the other 31 recommendations, Lagos State modified 6, accepted 11, and then about the others, they said they will refer to the federal government because they were way within, outside their powers to admit to. So, against that, I see the recommendations as 31 over 32. So that's why I think we should not be fixated on the fact that on the aspect of what concerned Lagos toll gates. Yeah, that for me is an inconclusive, area. A lot of sentiments are high, and you have this race for, oh yes, there was massacre, the race to say there was no massacre. The issue of massacre, that word massacre, that's what's creating all this brouhaha. So everybody is in tandem or is in agreement that the armies were deployed. Everybody's in agreement that the protesters were unarmed. Everybody's in agreement that the army fired shot, whether blank or live. That's, so all of those are the issues for me. I think we should be dwelling on the issue of Lekki. That since we have not been able to create a nexus between the shot fired and the fact that those shots killed people, but was it wrong to have fired shot at innocent protesters? Yes, it was wrong. Was it right to deploy army? The government can tell you they have the right to deploy army, but should we be deploying army to quell civil unrest? I would say no. So what these are issues that I think we should dwell on, and I think also the Lagos State government also has admitted that much. So it is for the rest of us to now begin to point to those areas to Lagos State government and say, look, if in this area we all agree, and then we agree that this shouldn't happen again, and then let's begin to reform the police, then we can truly say we have started a process of healing. But to just close our eyes to the Lekki issue and say let us go and heal ourselves will not assuage the feeling of people who felt some persons had died. Will not also assuage the feeling of people who felt injured or who felt shot at, because you won't be telling them that it is blank bullets. How do they know? All they know is that fires were coming out from guns. So whether it is blank or it is live, you don't want to wait to know. So those are, I think, what is actually, the crux of the matter. That's why people are aggrieved that, shots were fired at people. How will I know that they were blank bullets? But to say that it was a massacre, the evidence from the panel does not reveal that it was indeed a massacre. And so that's why I also say that the panel calling it a massacre, even when they have not enough evidence to establish that fact, I think also was an overkill by the panel. And so that's why the Lagos State government has said, look, we do not agree with that your conclusion. Whether the Lagos State government is looking for an excuse way out of it, that also I cannot establish. But I'm looking at it strictly from the report as I'm minded, and not this idea of, oh, let's work for peace, I also think it's premature. Yes, the government in their hurry to wanting to do what is right. Yes, okay, yes, we'll issue a white paper on it 2 weeks. But I also think that what should have happened would be, yes, for want of evidence, the Lekki massacre, we cannot target a massacre. For want of evidence, we disagree that it was a massacre, but we also agree that the action of the military could have caused a pandemonium and people were injured. For that, we say sorry to whoever was injured, and we have taken that responsibility to pay the hospital bill of people that were taken to the hospital, which actually the Lagos State government had done. But to now come out, utter those words and say, we are sorry for this that happened. It ought not to have happened. But that said, can we now address the root cause of what led to the protest, which is human rights violation? Let us begin to address all of those things. Let us join hands together and see how we can correct those anomalies. I don't think a lot of people will disagree with government if they take that route. But this mad rush to deny the massacre, and then you now end up denying the whole event, and then this mad rush to say no, there was a massacre, and then you now close your eyes to the effort of government, it's basically what is creating this furor. And it can be addressed if only both sides will listen to each other.
Okay, thank you very much. Quite incisive there. On a final note, the issue of subsidy, oil subsidy in Nigeria has lingered for too long, that now the current administration of President Muhammadu Buhari is looking at removing the subsidy come next year. Some analysts have even said that why should you deregulate and still be fixing the price? And the issue of the 5,000 for 40 million downtrodden Nigerians, how visible do you think this? What's your take on this?
I sometimes wonder if when people get into government, their common sense take flights. If you remember, in 2013, 2014, even 2012, President Muhammadu Buhari, as General Muhammadu Buhari, out of government, marched with others on the streets of Abuja. Why should subsidy be removed? Why should petroleum prices be increased? In 2014, he also said in an interview, it's online everywhere, that if anybody tells you that they are paying subsidy, that they are lying, that it is fraud. This way is worse, not mine. And now, you are in government. We agree. I completely agree that government is paying subsidy. Because you cannot be importing petroleum products at the rates that you are importing and yet still be able to sell at the price that we are selling at the pump. So because also of the fluctuation of the forest. That said, this government also promised Nigerians that they were going to fix the refineries, because if you fix the refineries, there will be no need for you to say you are going to import finished products, because your refineries should be able to process your local demand. Secondly, also, if you fix your refineries and you allow them autonomy to run, you can sell crude and say, look, you know what, all we are going to do as a government is to ensure that we track all our crude, we sell to anybody that wants to buy, including those running our local refineries. We sell to you at the competitive price, you go refine and sell to the people. We make it available. So when you do that, you don't need to be selling to international marketers or international refineries. you sell to your local refineries. The local refineries will be able to produce for your consumption and produce for the consumption of neighboring African countries. That's why you see Niger, common Niger, country that is landlocked, has built refinery, and Nigeria is in a hurry to go sign an agreement with them so that they can be supplying us, petroleum products from their refineries. So, against that backdrop, when you now sit down and say you're spending 1.8 trillion naira annually on subsidy payments, and you want to yank that up because you believe it's not sustainable, and in this place, because you also know that is the mono economy that drives that's the mono product that drives the economy. So because you want to remove that, you know there will be hardship. You now want to cushion the effect by sharing 5,000 naira, just like Jonathan came then and said they would buy buses to ease transport. Now this one is to share 5,000 naira to the vulnerable, to cushion the effect of the fuel price hike. The questions you will ask yourself is, these 40 million Nigerians, are they the only people that are affected by this price? How will these 40 million Nigerians be selected? Are we going to share the way we share palliative that were hoarded in warehouses, that it took the MSAS protest for people to break into warehouses to go collect palliatives? Are we going to share the way we share 192 billion to people in Katsina? At the end of the day, only few received it and majority didn't receive. Or are we going to share the way Oshibanjo was sharing the conditional cash transfer on the trader money that only those in front will get, and at the end of the day, a lot of people won't get? Or are we going to share the way Professor Skiamu said he shared? Yes, 20,000 to the 774 local government people in those local government until date. A lot of people said they didn't get anything. Or are we going to share the way our Minister for Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management shared money during palliative, and yet I can't remember anybody getting that money in Lagos here or in Ogun. So when you have all of those crises already, that money has been shared and it didn't get to the people, that is going to raise red flag. And then secondly, if you do a simple calculation, you punch your calculator and say, wait a minute, 5,000 naira for 40 million people monthly, that gives you 200 million naira. 200 billion naira, sorry. So 200 billion times 12 months, that gives you 2.4 trillion naira. So you say 1.8 is not sustainable, and then you want to share 2.4 billion. Does that make sense? How come we can't even say, okay, you know what? Let's find a way, use a stopgap. Why are our refineries not working? Because if they were working, you don't need to be throwing money at problems. So when all of these are happening, it means that it's either you don't understand the problem, or you're not even ready to solve it. Or it's typical of Nigerian politics, they are looking for a way to keep money for the next election, because anytime election is approaching, they create one problem that they can solve and then use those money. And then lastly, or second to the last, if you remember, sometimes in 2018, the then Minister for Petroleum, 2016, Ibe Kachuku told us that the petroleum sector had been deregulated and that they were no longer paying subsidy. The market forces would be allowed to determine, and that a lot of people cried. That was when they jacked up the price, I think from 140 something to 160 something. And then people said, no, this is not true, because if you say you have removed your hand, you're no more paying subsidy, then what is equalization still doing? Why is the product same price all over the federation? That means somebody is paying the equalization, the bridging cost between Lagos and Kogi or Kano or Kaduna or Sokoto, as the case may be. They went blank on that. And then now all of a sudden, that same subsidy that you removed in 2016, you still want to remove it in 2022. So those are the big questions that are begging for answer, and that's why they suddenly, all of a sudden now went cold on it. And for me, the only thing is that all of us will have to be involved in the process of selection, because if we are not involved, we'll continue to have these people who get into office and their common sense will take flight, dictating for us what we should do and what we can do.
Thank you very much. As usual, you're always an interviewer's delight. It's nice talking to you.